And welcome back to the 20 Strongest Captain Class Shinigami's video series. We are on Captain Class Shinigami number 9, 9 out of 20, and that is, in my personal opinion, Rukia Kuchiki. So, why do I think Rukia Kuchiki is number 9? I mean, obviously the reason is, well, because I think she beats certain individuals but not others. But why do I think that's the case? Well, first we got to go over her actual abilities. She, as a captain of the 13th Division, she has an immense amount of Ryatsu. She's not a master swordsman, but she's definitely a skilled swordsman. Her knowledge of Kido is where she really seems to excel. We know she is very good at Kido. She's not quite the level of, say, her brother or Urahara or the claims of Mayuri, apparently, but she is definitely like in the second tier of Kido users in the Soul Society. Capable of using, in fact, level 70 Hados, the attack spells, without too much difficulty. She doesn't need to recite the incantation, and she may have gotten stronger since the 10-year time skip. We just don't know right now. Her Shikai, Sonona Shirayuki, is considered to be the most beautiful sword in the Soul Society. It's also a pretty powerful one. Now, truth be told, we actually didn't know what its actual abilities were. We assumed it was ice-based until the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. But as it turns out, that is not what Rukia's sword's ability actually is. Her sword's ability actually is to reduce her own body temperature. The sword is just an extension of that, and is able to create ranged attacks due to it being an extension of her spiritual power. But that being said, its main ability actually... the information I'm reading just keeps moving on me. Where are we? There we go. It has... its abilities all reside in things labeled as dances. Besides ice techniques, general freezing ability, its ability, it can freeze a target from a distance or you in a different manner, create a path or platform in midair, can freeze even Reishi created spiritual weapons from a Kunsei and cause it to shatter. In reality, it does not spread coldness from the blade. It's actually the ability to bring the body's temperature down, the body temperature of the wielder down to below freezing. And as a result, anything the wielder touches, the sword itself instantly nearly freezes. It just increases the reach, that's all. And due to this power, Rukia is momentarily capable of killing her body and controlling her own by controlling her own reishi, putting her in a form of cryostasis. She can completely stop all the molecules in her body, preventing any material or any substance from attempting to affect her from preventing any material or substance attempting to affect her from doing so because it cannot enter her body. However, if someone uses an optical attack, like it still works on her nerves. She can lower her body temperature to a point where the ground beneath her instantly freezes, causing ice quakes, and even reduce her temperature to absolute zero. She can maintain this no longer than 4 seconds. That being said, 10 years down the road when she became a captain, it's very possible she's increased this time. She's mastered her Zanpakuto. Either way, she has several different dances. The first dance, Sonomai Tsukushiro, first dance, White Moon, is the one that we first see her use in the series. She creates the tassel, the sash, on the end of her, the ribbon on the end of her handle, creates this large circle. And anything in the circle gets frozen. She was easily able to kill a fraction of Grimjiao when he first used it, when she first used it. That being said, it was D-Roy who was probably the weakest one among them, but still, it's a very useful technique, but it is predicated on the fact that the opponent has to be within that area of effect. It's not a very large radius of effect. Sugi no Mai Hakuren. Rukia calls it the name of this dance, puncturing a bunch of holes in the ground and basically causing a giant blast wave of cold and ice. Third dance, White Sword. This one basically is only used. Well, actually, am I getting the right one? Yes, sorry, yeah. She calls the name out of the sun, which allows her to gather moisture in the air to the tip of Sora Nashira Yuki, creating a blade of ice. This makes it possible to augment the blade's length. After piercing a target, it continues to freeze any surrounding object in the immediate area. Now, this technique can even be used after the sword has been snapped in half. There is also Juhaku, or white tree. She stabs the ground, which creates a trail of ice in the direction of her intended target. The ice freezes the target from the base and continues freezing upward and transforms the target into ice, in essence creating a ice tree, if you will. And then there's ice connecting rope. If she can't reach the sword, she can create an ice extension to connect her hand to the sword hilt. She used this against, I believe it was the Fullbringer, Riku? I can't remember exactly her name. But yeah, it's a pretty effective blade, but it does have limitations into it. Temperature stability is a big thing. Going up against just more powerful Reishi is going to be another issue. Keto, everything. It's not immune to a lot of things, but it's still a very powerful blade. Her Bankai, Haka no Togame, censure of the white haze, or white haze punishment. Rukia's entire I don't even need to really bring this one up. It's what I'm using in her image right here. Her appearance changed into this very regal princess-looking effect. But this basically is a giant flash freeze effect. It increases the area and radius of her attack to a very large degree. We're basically reducing the temperature of the Bankai to absolute zero immediately. Upon release, a pillar of cold rises from the air and covers the area in a wide vicinity. Anything within the area influence of the mist is frozen. Once frozen solid, victims crumble away within seconds. Physical contact with Rukia herself causes other people to begin to freeze solid due to how cold she is. It's a very effective attack. It is, though, we got to go with how she displayed it in the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. We can assume it's gotten more effective, but we just don't have any proof on how more effective it's become. And the issue here is that if she doesn't catch you in that for initial blast, that person can just come in and cut you down because she can't move until she heat warms up, and she's got to do it slowly. So it's a very effective Bankai. So but it's a double-edged sword. If she doesn't get you, she's screwed. So with that being said, let's go over the lieutenants real quick. The lieutenant class Shinigami, who I'm not going over because at this point none of them are any higher on the list. Which means they all lose to everyone else on the list. So I just don't feel like bringing them up now. Against Renji, she beats her husband due to the fact that his attacks are all melee attacks, except for Zaka Tempo. But she would have to actually stab her for order that to work, and her Keto ability alone would be enough to keep him at bay. Not to mention, the colder she gets, the harder it is for him harder it is to justify getting close to her to get his attack off on her. Even keeping a distance with Zabimaru Shikai isn't smart, because again, if he's making contact with the blade and it's getting colder, the blade itself may very well freeze. And then, of course, again, there's her Bankai to his abilities. She would easily flash freeze him. Ikaku is another problem where there's no way he could beat Rukia. There's no legitimate way he could beat Rukia. He's probably a better swordsman, but that's about it. Other than that, though, she completely ones up him with her abilities. Then we have who am I missing here? Right? Then we have Shuhei. Now Shuhei is a much more tactical individual than either of the other two, but that really doesn't mean a huge deal when you're dealing with someone who's the colder she gets, the worse it's going to be for you. In fact, with the way his Zanpakuto Kazushini works, it would actually be worse for him to go up against her. Her first dance could easily catch Kazushini off guard, because Kazushini isn't actually the blade so much as it's the chain. So yeah, not a very good matchup. Neither if he goes Bankai. If she just goes Bankai while he's gone Bankai, he's going to flash freeze the entire area, thereby freezing the Bankai into submission. Absolute zero, no molecules work. So yeah, so there you go. With that being said, though, let's actually get into all the individuals real quick. All the actual captains that we're going to talk about. And likewise, and obviously she can't really go up against herself, so I never include that. But against Ichibei and against Yama. she would definitely stand a better shot, weirdly enough, against Ichibei than what she would Yama. Yama is the worst opponent she could go against. Absolutely. No question asked. He would just make it impossible for her to get to her maximum potential of Absolute Zero just by having Ryujin Jaka activated. The sheer heat in the area alone would just be impossible. She'd probably look like there's steam coming off her as she's trying to get there. If she tried to go Bankai, the sheer magnitude of the flames of Ryujin Jaka would probably counteract. It'd probably be more like an explosion, because while all matter stops at Absolute Zero, it's not so easy to say how it works against like that much heat. If, for instance, they go Bankai to Bankai somehow, some way, Ryujin Jaka, Zaka no Tachi is probably going to counteract. Counteract Haka no Togami, just because the amount of heat is, because there's no limit to how hot something can get. There's a limit to how cold something can get. So the fact that the question then becomes, is Absolute Zero, could you theoretically, because that's what he is, it's basically like he's wrapped in the heat of the sun. Could you theoretically freeze the sun by throwing a bomb that immediately flashes the Absolute Zero, and that is big enough to encompass the sun? I don't know. That's the problem. And even if you could, it's one of those things where there's no way she'd pretty much be able to activate it, just because the amount of heat is sapping all the moisture. Even if she tried to activate it, probably wouldn't work. So she loses very hard to Yamamoto. She still loses to Ichibei, but not for the same reasons. Honestly, Ichibei actually would have a little bit of a problem against Shinorayuki. Now, his sheer swordsmanship experience, hand-to-hand combat, and all of that trumps her. His Kido knowledge trumps hers. It's Zanpakuto to Zanpakuto. Now, while Ichimonji can cut a name in half, if she's already certain degrees below Absolute Zero, then even coming into contact with that blade is going to be a bit of a problem even for Ichimonji, just because Ichimonji will freeze upon contact with that. That being said, even if Ichimonji does freeze to some extent, it doesn't take away the fact that Ichimonji will still cut its name, Soda no Shirayuki's name in half, which, looking at this real quick, I always like to do this now when I figure out what half of their name would be. So I'm going to go with let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 9 letters, damn. I'm going to go with So-O-Yuki. So-O-Yuki. That would be Soda no Shirayuki's real new name now. Add on to the fact that he can just steal the black off her, which is a really weird sentence to say, and kind of rob her of abilities if he really wants to, and rob her of her flesh and blood, and basically just turn her into nothing with that, I can't remember the name of the ability. It's where he summons like the weird building made of ink and like the funeral grounds, and just absorbs sucks all the black off her. And that's kind of how it is. I mean, it's a weird sentence to say, but that's how that would play out, you know. Now, that being said, if she maybe went Bankai instantly going against him, yes, that theoretically could pull a win off for her. But that's all theoretical. There's no real... The problem is he's the monk who knows who's named everything, who knows the names of everything. He pointed out that Zabimaru's Bankai, Hio Zabimaru, was not the real Zabimaru's Bankai. He could just look at the sword and know its actual name, Bankai and all. There's nothing that says he wouldn't know Soda no Shirayuki's real name and possibly what it could do. Though I would say, though, that I think it'd be weird. I think, again, I can't remember his name, but the guy who actually created the Zanpakuto, I think he'd probably know what the Zanpakuto did better than Ichibei would. Ichibei would just know the name of the Zanpakuto more than likely. Still. But that being said, now we go into some victories. Now, if you saw my soy phone video, you know what I thought about that. And I had someone disagree with me on how I ranked soy phone. That's fine. But I do think she would beat soy phone in a fight. Now, the reason for that is because she can drop her body's function and put herself in the cryostasis. And remember, Suzume Bachi's abilities are reishi based. So a stronger Reiatsu will overpower hers. But more importantly, it is a poison. It is, if I'm not mistaken, it is a poison. Now, grant, once the poison hits the same spot again, it's an instant kill. It like wipes you out of existence. Because it's a poison, I don't think that Suzume Ibachi would work on Rukia in Shikai form, due to the fact that she's decreasing her body's function, so it would not work. Now, if she increased her functions after maybe getting the supposed killing blow on the Soifone, if she raised her body temperature, would that reactivate the poison? That's a tough call. I think it's upon the initial second sting. But that still raises the question, is that how Rukia beats her? Well, no, because Soifone's she's got Shunko, she's got Hakudo with hand-to-hand combat. She's a master of flat step, possibly the fastest in the Soul Society. Although I'd argue individuals like Biaki are at least equal or comparable to her, and possibly Shunsui is faster than her, but that's just because he's older, more experienced. And we know for a fact that the Zero Division are faster than her too, because of again, I can't remember his name, but the guy who invented the healing arts one-upped her quite a bit and made her I'm sorry. I don't want to bash on Soifone too much. I don't like her character, but she's got cool abilities, and I made mention that in her video. But it was kind of nice to see her brought down a peg there a little bit, because the problem with her character isn't like the arrogant stuff like it's the problem with her character stems from the fact that she's actually a very young captain. She's very immature compared to the rest of them. So it's not surprising that she would make some of the choices that she makes. Anyway, no, the reason she loses is because if this goes down to Bankai versus Bankai, it doesn't matter if that's a freaking tactical nuke, basically. The minute that Hakano Togami goes off, it's over. The nuke freezes and Soifone is done. Now, if she fires that thing point blank, sure. Or close to, actually, she wouldn't fire point blank because she's not an idiot. But she fires it at relative close range, like maybe a couple yards away, like a couple dozen yards away, which would be relative close range for this thing. That might work, but B, if Rukia activates her Bankai in an instant, then yeah, again, freezes the missile, done, and takes that out Soifone. So while I don't think it's impossible by any stretch of the means that Soifone could get a victory out on Rukia, I think the majority of the time, if you're asking me, 1 out of 100 times, I think Rukia actually does take the win on that. Then we go into both the third division captains, the former and the current. Actually, the former, the current, and the former. Actually, the former, and the current, I should say. And against both of them, surprisingly, I think Rukia would beat both of them. Now, why do I think that? Well, similar reasoning to why she would beat Soifone when it comes to Rose. She could easily keep on par with Kinshara. Nothing about that Zanpakuto says that it has a distinct advantage over her. But more importantly, Kinshara Butadon would pose a problem until she went Bankai and then froze not just the Bankai, but Rose himself. So there you go. Not to say that she wouldn't be affected on some level. She would be, because it's sound-based and therefore it's affecting her. But yeah, she would ultimately win in a battle against Rose. Gin is a tricky opponent. Gin is a tricky opponent because he's got range. God knows he's got range on Rukia. And then his Bankai is one of the, actually, I'd say his Bankai, while not the most destructive, is one of the most dangerous Bankais. It really is. It's fast, it's long, and obviously Kinshara's kill, Kamishini no Yari. I always like that scene too. It's like, you're going to die with a hole in your heart, just as you intended. Kill Kamishini no Yari. I think I do a pretty good Gin impression. I don't know about you. That would pose a serious issue. However, if it got to the point where he was going to use Kamishini no Yari, if he got to the point where he was going to use the poison effect of Kamishini no Yari, Rukia's ability to lower her body, her molecular body's molecular movement, her cellular movement, actually would be a preventative to the poison. And the fact of the matter is, if she's reducing her body to that cold, she'd be freezing the blade too, meaning she'd be ceasing all its functions. That little sliver he put in her, he'd be ceasing all its functions, which means at that point then, all she's got to do is close the distance enough that she can activate her Bankai and take him out, which I think is entirely possible. All she's got to do is surprise it. And you know what? If that had been the case, let's hypothetically say there was a scenario in the fake Karakura Town arc, and Gin had not been a good guy, as it turns out. That, they actually fought. It's like, well, sorry, Rukia, but it looks like you're going to have to be the first one to. You're going to be the first one I've shown this to. I was hoping to show it to Captain Eisen, but oh well, kill Kamishini no Yari. And all of a sudden, because he's great, he'd have to be really close to do that too. I think that was the point. He had to actually be touching his opponent. And all of a sudden, it's like, and then his eyes actually open up. It's like, and then she briefly explains it and just goes Bankai, boom, and then he just freezes and breaks down. I think that would have been a really cool scene, but oh well. So yeah, I do think she can beat both of them. Now, against Unohana, that one got to be tricky, and that got to be tricky really quick. So we know Unohana has healing abilities on the point where she can literally regrow fingers and, flesh near instantaneously. Her Bankai, and again, we'll talk about it when we get to Unohana. Unohana is coming up in the list. She's not number one or anything like that, but we're getting close to her on the list. Her Bankai, though, seems to be acid of some kind, which makes sense given what Mizuki's Shikai does involving acid. So the question then becomes, does the acid affect Rukia? Well, if she's for body temperatures below freezing, then an acid almost certainly freezes at a lower temperature than water. In fact, I'm going to check that right now. What temperature does acid freeze at? Like, what temperature does acid freeze at? Forgot to write the temperature part. There we go. What temperature does acid freeze? Okay, so if we're, as well as we all know, the freezing point of sulfuric acid is 10 degrees Celsius. The average leading battery acid sulfuric uses 30. So 10 degrees Celsius, I don't know actually what that translates to Fahrenheit. I know that's quite cold, though. Fahrenheit. Oh, perfect. Fahrenheit to Celsius. I just want to know what temperature that freezes at to Celsius. Okay, so I want to know what 10 degrees Celsius is. Wait, really? Am I reading that right? 10 degrees Celsius equals 50 degrees Fahrenheit? Seriously? Okay, I know Celsius is. All right. So it's 50. I am completely wrong on that. Although apparently the easiest way to find out the equation of how to get Fahrenheit is simply this: or maybe not. There's a formula for it. Let me see here. Is it the same if I do say 15? Yeah. Okay. So it's whatever the Fahrenheit number is minus the minus 32. Then times 5 divided by 9, and there you go. That's your Celsius, or 5 over 9. Anyway, so actually, acid freezes at a pretty pretty high temperature, which is weird. But that's sulfuric acid. This is clearly much stronger than sulfuric acid, which is weird. But anyway, chemicals. What are you gonna do? Anyway, she's she's probably far more powerful in Keto than Rukia is. And she's a far better swordswoman than she is. Far better swordsman. So the question is then, do I think she beats Unohana? Well, unfortunately, no, actually. I don't think she does. Now, why is that? Well, she's not going to go Bankai against Rukia unless she actually has to. She can easily overwhelm her with swordsmanship. And honestly, I frankly think Rukia would be dead before she ever hit absolute zero against Unohana. Unohana is like, there's a reason she was the first Kompachi and was beating Kompachi's ass in their fight for the majority of it until Kompachi finally got his full potential unlocked. She is no joke. Add on the fact that her Keto abilities could heal most of the injuries that Rukia's Shikai could do. And she's tactical enough and fast enough with Shunpo that we know she could get out of the way of her Bankai and then basically just deliver the killing blow. Now, if she did go Bankai against Rukia, I do think the Bankai then at that point is actually useless against Rukia because she can just freeze the acid as it is. But ultimately, Unohana was still, I think, just too much of an opponent for Rukia to handle. So my money goes to Unohana on that one. Then we deal with Then we deal with Shinji. Now, if you recall when I talked about Shinji, I noted that Shinji particularly has a problem with individuals who can basically spam a wide area of effect when it comes to their abilities. Bambietta's one of those individuals. That's why she was just able to flood the whole area with bombs or explosive reishi. That's why she was able to basically one-up them. Likewise, when he fought against some of the other individuals, I put him up against Yamamoto, who can just spam fire and just encompass the entire area, making his Shikai's abilities completely obsolete. Or someone like Mayuri, who can flood the field with poison if he needs to, using Magnu Terra 4 possibly paralyze Shinji, and is tactical enough to probably figure it out. Rukia falls into the former of those categories, where she's not tactical enough to really figure out how to overcome Sakanade, but her abilities make up for it to the point where even if Shinji tries to go in for a kill shot, it's not going to matter because his sword's going to freeze. Rukia will be able to feel where it's coming from and act accordingly, and then if she needs to, just activate Bankai and take him out. Unfortunately, Shinji's also kind of on the arrogant side, so that's where also what kind of kills him. I skipped Biaki, but we'll talk about Sanji real quick. She completely one-ups Sanji. 100% she kills Sanji. Because all she has to do is wait him out, honestly, her Shikai would probably be enough to take him out, but her Bankai would ensure he's taken out. Because she freezes one of them, she freezes them both. She freezes his Bankai, she freezes him dead. Because they are connected, and anything that happens to one happens to the other. So, unfortunately, she would be a terrible opponent for Sanji. But he'd go in there, guns blazing, and probably die horribly. Biaki is another one who, unfortunately, he's just much more experienced. His Shikai and Bankai give him a large area of effect, a lot of versatility. His Kido knowledge is at least as good, probably better. In fact, it's almost certainly better. He's faster than she is. We know that much. And he's a far better swordsman. Now, that's not to say that her Shikai and her Bankai abilities are completely obsolete against his. They're not. Like his blades are still going to be affected by the Shikai. It's just that he can more or less reinforce his defenses with the Shikai, and he's smart enough to get out of the way before he's killed by the Bankai. And then at that point, he delivered a killing blow. The same can be said for someone like Shunsui. Shunsui is basically too crafty and too tactical to get caught by something like again, I'm going to get the Bankai's name right off the top of my head if it kills me here. Haka no Togami. He's not going to be caught by it. He can hide in shadow, which means he can pretty much alleviate the whole getting caught thing. His Bankai as well. If he's in Bankai and she tries to basically kill him, it's not going to work out well for either of them. At that point, it's a tie, in which case I still give it to Shunsui because Rukia is the one who killed herself. So, yeah. Either way, yeah, Shunsui, he's too tricky. Again, too experienced, better swordsman, better flash step, probably at least as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable in Kido, and better at hand-to-hand combat. He's just a better strategist. It's just, there's a reason he's the head captain now. Then we deal with the two 9th Division captains. Now, these are two individuals that both, unfortunately, lose to Rukia, in my opinion. First off is Kensei, who his Shikai probably has a better shot against her than his Bankai does. His Bankai involves too much on getting in close. And even with his Shikai, the best he'll cut her up and maybe cause some explosions, but she's survived far worse than that. Again, it's just going to come down to the fact that, while he's probably better in hand-to-hand combat than she is, and probably a better swordsman, she's not someone she is a bad matchup for him. Just because of the fact that if he touches her, she's in the right state, he will freeze, and he will freeze to death. Almost instantaneously. Like, look what happened to Asnod. That's a great example of what could happen to you. His entire outer skin got frozen up, but he survived and was able to come back and basically wreck shop for a little bit. Tozen's a bit of a different story because Tozen's definitely a more cautious individual, and Emma Karogi's Suzumushi, and I know there's another part in the name, but Suzumushi and his Bankai Emma Karogi would be perplexing to her. The problem is that we saw the radius of effect the Bankai has. It is very large. And it's larger, it appears larger than the area of effect of Emma Karogi, which means if she goes Bankai in his Bankai, then he's screwed because he's in the Bankai. And I fully see that happening if she feels she can't muster through Emma Karogi's abilities, which is very possible. Rukia doesn't strike me as someone who's got the battle sense or the intellect. She's not dumb, but I mean, she's very smart, but she doesn't strike me as a strategist to figure out the mechanisms of Tozen's Bankai. So I think her best resort would be to go Bankai. Against Toshiro. Now, this is something that's very interesting. They're both ice types in some ways, but only one is the definitive ice type. Likewise, Toshiro actually can freeze and halt and just end the movement of all matter in an object, opponent, energy, whatever, within 4 seconds. Rukia just gets to absolute zero, which in theory should be able to do that. But again, if there's a difference between the cloud and mist, which you could maybe fight back with enough heat or energy or something like that, versus just having all of your abilities, everything frozen solid, just down to the bone and beyond, and down to the soul, if you will. Honestly, she's up shit creek with this guy because except for her Bankai, she has nothing that can touch this guy. None of her freezing abilities are going to do anything to him because he can just block it with ice. The only thing that she might be able to do, her Bankai might be able to hit him because remember, in his Bankai, Toshiro is not fully covered in ice, but he can wrap himself up in his ice and maybe create walls of ice. Likewise, he's also careful enough that he could probably avoid it, and even if he doesn't, he can create enough blockades of ice that are already cold. So even if it's not absolute zero his ice, it's cold enough that it's not going to immediately shatter or anything like that. If anything, it just gets colder. And if he creates a big enough block of it, then it doesn't really matter at that point. So yeah, and at that point, he comes in and kills her. He's far more skilled with the sword than she is. I'm gonna assume his flash tip is better, but I'd be willing to put them even on that. I will say we don't see him using Keto very much. Not to say he can't use it, but yeah, I don't think he's a very versed Keto user. So yeah, that might be the one thing she has on him, and it could play a factor. But he's already fought Keto users before, so it's not that big of a deal. Against Kompachi Zaraki. Kompachi's someone, again, this is a bit of a tough one, because I love Kompachi. He's one of my favorite characters. But I admit that it might not be the best matchup for him. What really does, I think, save him in this fight is just the sheer level of his spiritual energy in Ryatsu. Because let's make no mistake, take Aizen out of the equation, who is sealed up in Muken. Of all the captains, of all the Shinigami who are in the Soul Society, not their Royal Guard, and even then, Royal Guard, he might actually surpass them. He has the most spiritual energy. Bar none, I don't think there's much of a contest. Not even Shunsui has that much spiritual energy compared to Kompachi. Kompachi is raw power. And the thing is, his power acts instinctively. It acts like a shield. He can manipulate it in some ways to basically radiate out. Meaning he can block, things like incoming attacks. He can't be really hurt by just straight physical attacks. Also, the thing is, Rukia's not going to go Bankai right away unless she has to, because that's like a last resort. She can't move after the Bankai. If Zaraki thinks he can't do damage to her, or if Zaraki realizes if he touches her, he's going to get frozen a little bit, then he would try to attack her from a different way. Because despite how he appears, Zaraki, again, isn't dumb. He's not a genius, but he's not like a master tactician in terms of creating a giant plan. But in terms of thinking on the fly, creating strategies that actually work, and just, adapting to the fight, you'd make an argument that apart from maybe Urahara, there's no one better at adapting on the fly than Kompachi when it comes to a fight. So really, I don't think Rukia would be able to freeze him like she did Asnat, because his spiritual energy is just so much greater than hers and Asnat's. again, it kind of, not to say he might not be hurt by it, but it might be more be like a frostbite in the area she cuts. Like when she cut Asnot, she basically cut him and froze him, froze his entire body to some degree. With Kompachi, I don't think that'd work. Plus, he's far too good of a swordsman that he'd let that happen, so he'd probably just block it. Although he enjoys, the cut and bloodshed and all that, he'd still probably just block it. Especially after figuring out what's going on with it. At that point, then, it becomes the issue of, is Kompachi's Ryatsu large enough and strong enough that he could survive her Bankai? Difficult to say, but given the way the series does portray him, given everything he survived the vacuum of space, which is not true absolute zero, but it's damn close. I will say, yeah, I think he could survive it. It might be the same thing that happened after he got in this whole vacuum of space thing, where he was effed up, but I think he'd survive it. I think it would be akin to what happened with Asnot, actually, when she used her Shikai on him, where basically she froze off pretty much the entirety of his outer skin, but he was still alive and he broke out of it. So I think it might be something like that where the Shikai really doesn't do much to him. The Bankai would do what it did to Asnot, but he's got so much power that at that point he just goes Bankai, releasing all his power, or just releases Nozarashi and just cuts her down, because at that point she can't move. So while I think she surprisingly could hurt Zaraki quite a bit in Bankai, I actually don't think she'd kill him. Now that being said, I could be very wrong on that, and I might be playing a little favoritism on Kompachi, but still, I don't see him getting the win in that case. So I don't see her getting the win overall. If we're talking about the overall, yeah, I think he wins. Last two to talk about here, and we talked about Mayuri last time, but Mayuri I think actually loses to, again, give him enough time he can beat anyone. But Mayuri I think just loses to Rukia just because she is not a good opponent for him. His poison actually wouldn't do anything to her because she can freeze her body to the point where the poison doesn't work. At that point, then she can just freeze his Bankai, freeze the effects of the poison from his Shikai. Yeah, he's a very good on-the-fly tactician and all that, but if she really needs to, she'll just end his ass right there with the Bankai or the Shikai abilities. Because they shouldn't be underestimated. That's the thing too. She's one of the only captains that even if he gives up, stabs himself, turns to the liquid to escape, she could still freeze his ass solid and essentially kill him. So I would go with Rukia on that one as well. The last one to talk about is Mr. Hattenclogs. And unfortunately for Rukia, she does not end this video with a win. Urahara is by far more dangerous and more skilled in just about every field than Rukia is. Swordsman, he's a better swordsman. Kido, he's a master of Kido, whereas Rukia is extremely proficient. Hand-to-hand combat, we know he's better. Flash step, almost certainly better, though that's probably just due to years of experience. Tactical abilities, he is the man with the unknown means. He is literally the guy who thinks 1,000 steps ahead. Even in the weird scenario that happened with oh my god, the Death Dealer, one of the best, Ascalon Akalivar, probably a fan favorite Sternritter. Even with him, he still had planned for a scenario that happened and was able to get out of there alive. As we learned in the light novels, he's alive. His Shikai alone is far more versatile. And I heard a great explanation of what his Shikai really did, is that while Benihime Atarame, Kanabaraka and Benihime Atarame restructures anything it touches, standard Benihime just restructures energy, which, as you see, when you think about it, it makes 100% sense, because when you see all of Benihime's abilities, they all just are energy-based abilities that are just different. So really, it's just up to Urahara's imagination. I swear to God, we probably haven't seen a quarter of the things that sword can probably do. Benihime is one of my favorite Zanpakuto. And just in terms of design, too. I really need to pick up a replica at some point. And Rukia, I'm certain Rukia's abilities probably have more than the 3 dances we actually saw. But even if we go Bankai, Urahara is a careful enough individual that he probably either would replace himself with a portable Gigai, or he would just shumpo out of there quick enough to avoid the range and then take her out. He's too crafty to be taken out by someone like Rukia, especially with the way he analyzes things, he'd analyze her sword and realize that if she knows Bankai, her Bankai is probably something like this, but to a much greater degree. So Urahara would take the win over Rukia. But still, Rukia is a fan favorite for a reason. Rukia is a very beloved character in many regards. Ultimately, though, I feel comfortable putting her at number 9, if I'm going to be frank. I think that's a good place for her, especially when you compare it to some of the other captains. Are there captains, thinking back on it, that she beat that I might reconsider? If I were to ever redo this list again, I'd have to, and again, if I were to ever redo this list one more time, first off, there'd have to be new information that came out about some characters for me to even consider doing that. But if I were to do it, I might relook into her versus Gin. That one I might relook into, but ultimately, I feel comfortable where I placed her on the list and the wins I gave her and the losses I gave her. But let me know what you think. Put in the comments below. Let me know. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. Ideas for who would win, Star Wars, Superior, Magic, What If, anything to do in the channel. Put that in the comments below as well. I'll get to that at some point. So, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you tomorrow, because it's the week of What If starting tomorrow. I got a who would win. There will be no death battle prediction because they bumped the death battle up a bit. But until then, hit that bell for notifications. I'll see you next time.